is good.
All the time.
And all the time.
God is good and that is nature. Wow, God is great.
We're happy to be here to celebrate our Education Day with our institutions of education from the Archdiocese of Kisumu. We want to thank God for the many gifts He has given us, for the gifts of our institutions, for the gifts of our head teachers, principals of schools, for the gift of the performances at various levels, and for the good and the gift of the goodness and the special graces He bestows upon us through our institutions. I begin by appreciating the presence of those who have come. St. Barnabas girls, where are you? Are you there? Are you there? Let us give them a clap. Bishop of Both, Ojola, are you there? Let us give them a clap. Thank you very much. St. Elizabeth Mary's girls, are you there? Let us give them a clap. St. Philomena Sigoti, are you there? Let us give them a clap. Civilian Secondary, are you there? Where are you? Let us give them a clap. Dr. Alo Gumbi, are you there? Let us give them a clap. That is the first best to hear. St. Cecilia Luer, are you there? Let us give them a clap. St. Peter's Rambola, are you there? Let us give them a clap. St. Mark's Kogila, are you there? Where are you? Let us give them a clap. St. Benedict's Ningoma, are you there? Let us give them a clap. Our Lady of Lourdes, are you there? Where are you? Let us give them a clap. St. Alois Rare, are you there? Let us give them a clap. Holy Trinity Rangala, are you there? Second best is there. Let us give them a clap. St. Mary's Work, are you there? Let us give them a clap. Kirembe Secondary, are you there? Where are you? Let us give them a clap. Thank you. St. Boniface Magare, are you there? Let us give them a clap. St. Joseph Nyabondo, are you there? Where are you? Let us give them a clap. Thank you very much. Ahero girls, are you there? Let us give them a clap. St. Mary's Yala, are you there? At least I saw the principal. Let us give them a clap. St. Peter's Kajula, are you there? Let us give them a clap. St. Stephen Yatigo, are you there? Let us give them a clap. St. George's Sianda, are you there? Where are you? Let us give them a clap. St. Francis Rangala, are you there?
Yes.
Oh, let us give them a clap. I think the choir has helped you to respond. Yourselves,
Yes.
Thank you for coming in big numbers. Hello, George. St. Gregory Cole, were you there?
Yes.
Let us give them a clap. St. Teresa's girls, are you there?
Yes.
Give yourselves a clap. St. Paul's Kanyakwara, are you there? Of course, you are my neighbors. Let us give them a clap. Canon St. Raymond, are you there? Canon St. Raymond, you must be somewhere. unless if this list is becoming opaque. Let us give them a clap. St. Martin de Porres Special School, are you there? Let us give them a clap. St. Frederick de Kuka Academy, are you there? Let us give them a clap. St. Teresa's Yard, are you there? Let us give them a clap. Kunya Primary, are you there? Let us give them a clap. Is there anybody you have not mentioned? Father? Are you there? Let us give them a clap. Somebody else? Bishop of Kottenberg, are you there? Let us give them a clap. Somebody else? Arapul. Are you there? Let us give them a clap. Why are some names missing from our servers? St. Michael's door, are you there? Are you there? Anybody else? St. George's Special, are you there? Let us give them a clap. I think there was a Venezuelan somewhere around here trying to interfere with our servers. God is good and all the time.
God is good and that is nature. Wow, God is great.
I want to assure you that the list of Father George was done in good faith. There was no malice and there was no interference from external forces. Yeah? We are gathered here to celebrate this great day, our educational institutions. And today's gospel is talking about the Sabbath. What a wonderful opportunity given us on this day when we are meeting as educational institutions and the gospel is talking about the Sabbath. And the Pharisees are putting Jesus to task because his disciples are doing something prohibited on the Sabbath. Sometimes the controversy around the Sabbath cannot be properly understood if we don't go back into history as to the meaning of the Sabbath. In the book of Genesis, which is actually the origin of the Sabbath, we are told God, after having created everything he had created, and seeing that everything was good, he rested on the seventh day. And because of this, the seventh day became holy. Why was the seventh day holy? The seventh day is holy because God rested on the seventh day. And God is holy. So why should we rest on the seventh day? We rest on the seventh day because God rested on the seventh day and God is holy. God cannot do what is not holy. That is the origin of the Sabbath. It is directly related to the holiness of God. Having created everything and seeing that everything he created was good, he rested to celebrate the sanctification of his work of creation. So resting on the seventh day makes direct reference to the holiness of God and to the work of God. But there is another reason as to why the Sabbath is a special day. And that reason is found in the book of Deuteronomy. In the book of Deuteronomy, the people of Israel are reminded to keep the Sabbath holy because it reminds them of their freedom. Why? Because it takes them back to Egypt when they lived in slavery, and while in slavery, they were not allowed to rest. Their slave masters in Egypt expected of them to work every hour, every day, because they were slaves. When they were freed from Egypt and in the Exodus into the land of promise, they had to keep the Sabbath holy because the Sabbath was a celebration of freedom. People who are not free don't celebrate and keep the Sabbath holy. They work non-stop because that is what slaves do. But rest on the Sabbath, to keep the Sabbath holy, is a sign that we are free. It was the celebration of the freedom of the people of God, Israel, liberation from Exodus. So the Bible gives us two reasons as to why the Sabbath should be kept holy. One, it is a celebration of God's rest day. The celebration on the day God rested after creating everything that he saw was good. So the day is sanctified by God. Secondly, it is the celebration of freedom. Freedom from slavery. Freedom as children of God. People who have entered the promised land and they are no longer under the domination of their slave masters. When the people of Israel entered into the promised land, these two reasons kept them for a long time in maintaining the Sabbath, to remember the holiness of God and to remember themselves as free in the presence of God. Of course, first, political freedom, but eventually, even most importantly, the celebration of freedom from the slavery of sin. Now, years passed, and they stayed in the Holy Land for a long time, the promised land, and then they began to interact with other nations, their neighbors, who did not worship one God. They worshipped many gods, and the impact on their religion began to be felt. There was concern that their religion was being diluted because of the interaction with other tribes that did not believe in one God. And there came a movement. Now the movement was the movement of the Pharisees. Sometimes when we talk about the Pharisees, we read about them in the gospel, we can be tempted to look at them as purely being a very negative group. But behind the Pharisees, there was a very good intention. The intention was to safeguard the religion of the people of God against the contamination of the nations. To safeguard the holiness of the people of God, having been understood as a priestly people, a holy nation. With all this interaction, they were getting mixed up and they were losing their holiness and sanctity, and therefore losing the holiness of God and forgetting their God who created them, rested on the seventh day, liberated them from Egypt, and rendered them free. They were falling back into slavery, the slavery of the abandonment of God, and the slavery of the refusal to accept that they are free and being beholden by the gods who had no power really over them. The movement of the Pharisees comes up to recapture that, to recapture the holiness of the nation, of the people of God, to remind the people of who they are, who created created them, where they come from. The emphasis on the Sabbath day is just one of the emphases. They are reminding the people of Israel, remember your God is holy. And he commanded us to keep the Sabbath holy. He commanded us to keep it holy because he rested on that day. And secondly, it reminds us that we are no longer slaves. We are free. Refusal to keep this day, now this is the really important part, refusal to adhere to the Sabbath, we run the risk and the danger of forgetting the holiness of God and consequently our freedom as the people of God. That was the risk. And that is what's behind the movement of the Pharisees. Unfortunately, for the movement of the Pharisees, they overstepped. Instead of emphasizing the holiness of God and the freedom of the children of God, they got lost in details. So much so that their good intention became a burden to the people. It is the burden in the gospel reading of today that Jesus is correcting. Jesus is not correcting what the Pharisees wanted to keep in the mind and the culture and the tradition of the people. He is correcting the extremities that came in as they tried to embrace the tradition, the holiness they had received from God right from creation. And the linkage between God and creation. The Sabbath is holy because God is holy. The Sabbath is holy because we are free. These two were forgotten, and they got more concerned, the Pharisees, with little details that had no real meaning in the spiritual relationship between God and his people. In the case of today, we hear the disciples of Jesus were moving through the cornfields, and they began plucking grains, rubbing them in their hands, and eating. The Pharisees, remember how they came up? Being offended by this, they take Jesus on. Why are your disciples doing what is prohibited on the Sabbath? Behind their comment, there is a genuine concern. There is a genuine concern, and we should not lose it. We should not lose it because they went overboard. They are saying and asking what appears to be a genuine question. Why are your disciples doing what is prohibited on the Sabbath day? Let us take the question a bit deeper. It's as if they are saying, why are your disciples not sanctifying the holiness of God? Why are your disciples not glorifying the freedom of the people of God? But I wish that is what they meant. At the back of it, that is what they should have meant. But they lost that, those two, and concentrated on details. They detached the holiness of God from their concern with people's religiosity. But their basic concern was good. After what they did, they tried to introduce once again the life of godliness in every department of the people's life. They were telling the people, think of God wherever you are. When you are in the market, God is there. When you are in the fields, God is there. Wherever you are, take every opportunity to sanctify the name of God. Something similar actually can be said about some of our traditional African communities. In fact, some African scholars have written extensively on this matter. What distinguishes traditional African religions from other religions especially those that have come to Africa, including Christianity to a certain extent, what distinguishes them from the traditional African religions is that African traditional religions were religions that penetrated every aspect of society. They write and say, when a person went to the market, they went to the market religiously. When they went to the river to fetch water, they went to the river religiously. When they went to visit the neighbor, a friend in a far-off country, their religion, traditional African religion, was part and parcel of their life. It was impossible to do anything outside your traditional religion. When people were harvesting, they were harvesting everything, singing religious songs. Religion interpenetrated every aspect of society. And the movement of the Pharisees was trying to do something similar with the people of Israel, not to forget themselves because of interaction with other nations, to keep the holiness of God and remember that they are a free people. Let us go back to the question of the Pharisees and apply it to us. Why are your disciples doing what is prohibited on the Sabbath? Let me address this question to myself. Imagine they were asking me, Your Grace, why are your schools doing what is prohibited on the Sabbath? What would they say? Let me rephrase the question because you have not understood me well. Imagine they ask me, Your Grace, why are the principles of your schools promoting what is prohibited on the Sabbath? Let us say these principles are too high. Okay, let us come home. Your Grace, why are the teachers in Catholic schools promoting what is prohibited on the Sabbath? Okay, let us come a bit lower. Because that sounds a bit more complicated. Your Grace, why are children in your schools still going to school on Sunday? I look at the Pharisee and say, wow, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming. So apart from dismissing the Pharisees, behind the Pharisees there's a very fundamental question. A fundamental question that concerns us. And as we celebrate our day of institutions in the Archdiocese of Kisumu, apart from the correction made by Jesus, let us give a second thought to the question of the Pharisees. Basically, they have a point, but there could be an exaggeration. But Jesus is correcting the exaggeration. He wants the Sabbath day to be linked to God and to be linked to the freedom of the people of God. If, for example, I want to give the most extreme example, and Sister Mary Charles allow me to use your school, not because it has happened. If, for example, St. Teresa's girls every Sunday went for sporting and not for mass, what would we think about St. Teresa's? If on Sunday, St. Teresa's girls, every Sunday, you are seen in buses going to Rangala girls, Ahero whatever, Ahero boys, Rangala boys. On Sunday. And then, Father Moses doesn't see you in church. What are we supposed to conclude? What are we supposed to, let us hear you. What are we supposed to conclude? What is that? You don't do what? You don't love God. Thank you very much. Love for yourselves. You know, that's an extreme example. Very extreme. It will never happen. That I'm sure. But it gives us a pointer. We are seated here today are people who embrace the same values. As I was saying the teachers of St. Teresa's the other day, as a teacher in a school, you are the continuation of the parent. You are continuing the work of the parent because the principal work of education belongs to the parent. That is why in some countries, parents are even allowed to do home education. They educate their children entirely at home because it is the principal role of the parents to educate their children. Because it is believed parents cannot choose anything harmful for their children. They will give them the best. Now a teacher in the school continues that role of the parent, choosing what is best for the children placed under the care. In a Catholic institution, with Catholic principles, Catholic head teachers, and Catholic children, what would be the best gift you would give to a child? If you're a Catholic student, what is the best environment you would like to grow under? If you are a Christian parent, what is a Christian student? What is the best environment you would like to grow under? If you are a Muslim child, what is the best environment you would like to grow under? Would it be a godless environment? For any parent belonging to any of those religions I mentioned, the answer is no. I am making a special appeal, therefore, to all those gathered here. Let me not talk to those who have come because they are still on the way and they are not hearing. Let us speak to those who are here. So they all say, I was told. Listen keenly to the question of the Pharisees. And before you dismiss them, listen to the history of behind their concern. And remember, Jesus is correcting the exaggeration. He is not correcting their fundamental concern. A society dissociated from God slowly by slowly loses itself. And our institutions of learning, Catholic institutions, should help us to recapture, to rediscover the place of things in the scheme of God. Let us relieve ourselves once more. Let us ask ourselves, what is this? What is this that we must do on the day of worship that is going to increase the grade of my school without God? What is this? What is this? Are we unknowingly contributing to the desacralization of Sunday? If your school continually, for example, pays no attention to the day of the Lord, after 4 years, with your student used to that, what are you producing in the society? A child that begins to think, after all, it is normal to go about your life without involving God. Are you aware of that? Could be what you are promoting inadvertently. It's not your intention. Just imagine a child going through an institution over which you preside. There is something to ask ourselves, and I'm challenging all our institutions in the Archdiocese of Kisumu to reflect on this matter. There are no straight-jacket responses and solutions to every situation. A school in Katolo, where Father Felix comes from, may not be compared directly with a school, for example, in the town of the city of Kisumu. But there are some common grounds which we can agree on. And I want to challenge our Catholic principals and Catholic heads of institutions to take time to reflect on this matter. What can we contribute to helping society become a better place for the children to live in tomorrow with values? And is it possible to have values without linking them to the supreme power, a higher force, that is God? Yes, there are sections of society that say it's possible. I don't think our section of society is one of those societies. That is why the bell is ringing. Okay? It is saying we need to reflect seriously. What we are saying here and what goes on in the church where the bell is ringing is one and the same thing. The bell is telling us what we are doing here is linked to the main church, St. Teresa's Cathedral. Why are your disciples doing what is forbidden on what is Sabbath day?